Good morning. It is 9 o'clock here in California. I am Francis Savignan, the founder and CEO of EPARTRADE. Welcome to Race Industry Now, the technical and business webinar series of EPARTRADE, co-produced today with our good friend from Racer Magazine and Racer.com. We're going to have a double feature. So with me this morning is Judy King, the co-founder of EPARTRADE. Good morning, Judy.
Good morning, Francis and Jeff.
And we have our very special host today, Mr. Jeff Hammond. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, everyone. And it's 12:02 here on the East Coast. And breathe, Francis, breathe. I'm the one that was under the gun today, not you, but me. I literally had my charging cord left in Charlotte, and I've been to 4 stores this morning trying to find my charging cord for my laptop. It's like, what? What kind of country is this? We all need chargers. Where's the cord at? You won't believe this. Old Chip Ganassi's ex-sponsor, Target, they came through today.
Good.
We're ready to go.
Jeff Hammond, we need to congratulate you.
Why?
On being one of 3 crew chiefs for the new SRX racing series. So congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. And Judy, to be a part of that, that group of Mike Beam and Todd Parrott and Mike Christopher, excuse me. It's Ted Christopher's brother. He will be one of the 4, one of the other guys that'll be up there this weekend at Sanford Springs. And really excited about being a part of this organization and what the concept is. I mean, it is a throwback to Ray's original beginning in the IROC series. I think he's tried to take what he learned first time around and incorporate it into a little bit more up-to-date version. But I think I've been around the cars. The cars are awesome. They've been built by Fury, and they're identical. And I think the folks come Saturday night, they should be entertained and excited about the fact they're going to get a chance to see some of the guys that were their champions back in the day. And I'm talking about like Tony Stewart and Bill Elliott, and Bobby Labonte, for example. How often do you get lucky enough?
We lost you, Jeff, for 1 second. I think there's a little...
have the Indianapolis 500 winner, Elio Castroneves, big part. So...
Okay, I think there is a little connection. We lost you for 1 second, Jeff, but I think you're back on.
We have you back now.
Yes.
We have you back.
Congratulations. This is really exciting.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, for us, yeah. Sorry, Judy, I interrupted you.
Oh, I was just going to say, as I was telling Francisca, I wondered if part of your contract was having to grow your mustache back.
Hey. That's doable. But at the same time, I don't think they're going to like the color of shoe polish it's going to take to make it back brown like it needed to be. So, no, I think we'll just go with what we got. I am what I am. And if you don't like me, well, then change the channel.
Well, we like you very much, Jeff. Thank you for being our wonderful host. I'm getting a signal from our producer, Reed Keneski. We are bringing our first panel together, the wonderful people from Giant Finishing and Cohen Engineering. And then we are going to be on for an hour. And at 10 o'clock, we'll get Paul Pfanner and Jeff Swartz from Racer joining us. And we're going to have a special on Inside Pike Speaks with the team organizing the wonderful race. So thank you very much for being with us this morning. I see Jason on, I see Mark, I see Matthew as well. So Jeff Hammond, you're in charge.
I'm large and in charge. I'm ready to go, guys. Good morning, everybody. Jason, Mark, good to see you guys in person. We had the privilege of talking yesterday briefly, so it's great to finally put faces with the names.
Good morning.
Well, guys, I'm going to tell you what. I'm just going to make this real simple for everybody. We're going to have ourselves a little, we're going to pretend we're in a local bar, and we're going to BS for about an hour's worth, and I want to hear all about how Giant and Cohen Engineering have made magic together. I mean, I can see from behind you, Jason, that you've got a lot of parts and pieces up on the wall. And as we were talking the other day, Mark's company, Giant, has been instrumental in helping you, create some of these parts and make the end result, which are obviously winners on your wall behind you.
Yeah, I think so. I think in our industry, one of the biggest things is when you deliver a part to a customer, you want the fit and finish to be phenomenal. And that's where Mark comes in. He specializes in that end finish that you see on the parts. And so he's really helped us a lot.
So Mark, for those of us that are maybe just trying to get information today, including myself, tell us about Giant, what your company can do for other companies out there if you let them. We can do it better. I mean, you can get rid of the polishing wheels and all this other kind of stuff. Let me bring you my machines in here. You do it yourself, but you do it with a much more quality machine, correct?
That's correct. The main thing is we don't make their parts. We just make your parts better. Okay. Whether we prep it, help you prep it for the next step or the next couple steps, whether you need to deburr, you need to prep it for plating, anodizing, paint, powder coat. You want to do surface finish improvement for longevity of the parts, help decrease the heat, the friction. There are lots of things to do. And it's taking the operators out of it. Let the machine do the work, especially nowadays. Everybody's having a hard time finding employees. Well, these Giant machines can act as employees that show up on time every day, sober, no complaints. It's a reliable employee. And take your operators and let them be useful someplace else where the machines can't do the work. Okay. Also, consistency in the parts. Okay. The machine's going to do the same thing every time in and time out, versus an operator. Say you got a new guy's on second shift. They don't do the parts as good as the guys on the first shift, or vice versa. It all depends. You can see behind Jason, he's got some gorgeous parts back there. As a matter of fact, I made a comment at the last PRI show. I was upset with my lab guy. I go, how does Jason's parts look better than ours? He buys our machines, our media, our chemistry, and his parts look better than ours. We supply him everything, and he did a fantastic job. Basically, we're going to take your parts, and we know what you want to do. We know what your competition's doing. We know what other guys down the street, whatever. And we're going to help create a recipe of how to finish your parts. And you're going to take that recipe and you're going to modify it to your best liking, okay, with production, with your quality control, because in probably about 6 months, you're going to be able to run your parts better than we can, because you know exactly the metals, the time cycle. You're going to get it down to science. You're going to keep playing with, well, if I give you a time cycle of an hour, it's going to take an hour. Well, after a while, you check your parts after half hour, you're good enough. Well, you just doubled your capacity,
Mm-hmm. So Jason, with what Mark is saying right now, what made you settle on Giant? I mean, because again, like he said, obviously you've got a keen eye for what you're trying to get done. But what did you see in the Giant product maybe that led you to say this is the right machine for my application?
Well, we'd kind of made the connection, I think, through the PRI show initially. I had met Mark and some of his staff that he brings with him there to the show. I liked how they were very eager to welcome us to send sample parts, at absolutely no cost to us. They would process parts. They would show us, in X amount of time, we can make them this much better, possibly more time. We can take them clear to the super finish, surface finish quality.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, geographically, Mark and I are only about 3 hours apart. I was able to go up to his facility, actually see some of my parts in process. And I think it was just a home run. I saw the way he makes his product, 100% American made. I saw his guys there in the Chicago suburbs welding the tubs together for the tumblers, and met his father when we were up there that day, and family business, much like myself and my father. So I think it was just a good relationship. It was a great fit.
So Mark, could you enlighten us a little bit about what makes Giant and your particular machines and the way you guys, build your machines better? And also, we got some people want to already know what's the different methods of finishing that, you know, your products can do.
Can we get video on Matthew? All right, Matthew, walk over, start with the bowl. There we go. The GBB4. Okay, what you're looking at right now is a 4 cubic foot batch bowl. Jason's got a few of these. And if you go ahead, take a look, that one's set up with a wraparound settling tank and the variable frequency drive. Okay, one thing that we've done is throughout the years is on almost every single one of our machines, we've incorporated a variable frequency drive. Okay, is it absolutely necessary? No. But think of it when you're buying a car today. Don't you have power steerings, power window? I mean, it's just an option that should come with it. I know some of our competitors don't even offer it as an option. We kind of made it a standard, raising the bar, trying to promote a better machine. You, as I mentioned, you don't absolutely need it, but
Let me interrupt you right quick. Whatever your streaming system you're trying to show us, at least I don't know if Jason can see it or not, but I can't. It's not coming through.
No,
So
I
we'll
don't-
make sure our panelists and everything like that right there and attendees can see what we're talking about. Ah, there we go. There it is. Exactly what we're looking for. There you go. Perfect.
I was able to see it. Okay.
Yeah, got you.
All right, good deal. As I was saying, where did we leave off? Variable frequency drive. We're just trying to raise the bar, make it a better machine. You can crawl underneath the machine, adjust the belt tension. You can, move the motor placement, eccentric weights, things of that nature. But how long is that going to take you? Versus the touch of a button, you could just raise and lower the RPM by a few RPM, and it makes a huge difference. Okay, right now we're running relatively quickly. Guys, go ahead and slow that down a bit. There we go. So when you got more delicate parts, so now these parts are not banging into each other, okay? Especially in the racing industry, the gun industry, where when you're making delicate parts, you don't want that impingement, okay? This is the reason it's a more delicate action. Now, the next one we're going to go is probably our bread and butter machine is our W5. It's a tub style machine. And this, you have a different type of action where everything's coming down at you. So when the parts touch, it's going to be more or less of a collision. Now, granted, yes, we can manipulate the action of this machine also with variable frequency drive, but it just depends on the type of part you're going to be running is what's going to fit better. Okay. Next, there are other type methods of finishing of styles of machines. We've got blasting equipment, okay, slurry blasting equipment, centrifugal barrel. Let's start with the blaster. Okay, here's a slurry blaster. We started getting into slurry blasting for the simple fact that it's in vibratory finishing, it's like a slurry, but the difference is you got preformed shapes. What the slurry blaster allows is to get into little nooks and crannies in places where the media will either get lodged or will bridge and won't get into at all. So it allows, to use finer, you can use finer medias. Imagine your standard blast cabinet, which is abrasive and air. Now we introduce water to it. So we're making a slurry. Okay. And you can also use this. Well, here, you're showing off a drain that we made, a stainless steel drain that we sometimes use for our chemically accelerated, or people are familiar with REM and ASF. Okay. If you're going to set up a machine for that, a lot of times we'll use a stainless steel drain. And that one, we show up, we made it nice and pretty, give it like a platinum finish. Okay. The next machine over is the centrifugal barrel. Okay. This is more or less for smaller parts. And this can do finished parts in a fraction of the time a vibratory finishing can. Say hypothetically, it'll take you a few hours to finish parts in a vibe, and a centrifugal barrel can be done in minutes. What it is, it's a 1-to-1 ratio where the barrel spins one way and the turret spins another way. Okay. And instead of really dealing with RPMs, it's more G-force. I mean, it's throwing those parts hard. And that also, we do have a variable frequency drive where we can speed it up or slow it down, because I mean, you could easily distort parts in here. That's how much force this is used.
Hey, Mark, again, Rich would like to know, do you use chemicals or water or both?
We use both. As a matter of fact, if you guys are going to walk back over that GBB4, okay. You use, in most cases, the water and chemistry is used to keep a fresh abrasive surface on the media, whether it be ceramic, porcelain, steel, plastic, synthetic. In the proper chemistry, okay, it depends on what you're trying to do. You pick up a handful of media, you want to see bubbles, just see some suds in there. That way you know that there's plenty of soap in there, just enough to keep it clean. Now, in certain applications, which we'll show you shortly, when you're doing ball burnishing, guys, go over to the GBB12 and show them what ball burnishing looks like. Okay, where you got a mountain of foam to do it. If you want really pretty parts, to do it right, you want foam. Okay, I've always gotten screamed at by my father, asking me if we know what we're doing in the back, because there's foam all over the floor, water all over the floor, and he's screaming at me that, you know, the place is a mess. I go, but what do the parts look like? He's like, beautiful. And I just remind him, the customer doesn't care what our shop floor looks like. They care about how pretty those parts are. Right, Jason?
Hey, Mark, if I can interject a little bit, and
Correct.
if everybody can see this part that I'm holding in my hand, I'll tell you that my GBB4 would have looked like a foam mountain when this part came out of it. We would have had foam, just a head of foam all over the top of the settling tank, on the floor, and a pretty good, head of foam on top of the media in the tank, in the GBB4. So I'll definitely attest to the fact that when you're trying to get that high luster finish, you're going to amp up the amount of burnishing compound that you're running through the system, and create something that looks exactly like they're showing you there.
Okay, and guys, just for my knowledge, and hopefully it'll educate everybody, time wise, if let's just say somebody else is trying to do this, and they think, well, I got somebody here at the shop that can polish this and can do this and do that. How much time are you saving, and how long would it take? Are you putting one part in at a time, or can you put multiple parts in at a time? And so just give us some kind of idea what we're looking at, what Jason had in his hand. How long does it take it from basically a rough piece to a finished piece?
I think the first thing that we got to talk about is that not every part that goes through one of Mark's machines or any tumbler has to come out at that high luster super finish quality. All right, there's a place for that. So if we're speaking strictly to that, if I'm doing a case hardened steel part like one of our transmission gears, we would probably run that in the abrasive media for approximately 24 hours. And the amount of parts that you can put in there, again, are dictated by the size of your machine and the size of your parts, because you don't want the parts crashing into each other. You want them to maintain separation and have plenty of room for the media to be crawling all over the parts and doing its job. But we also, and I'm sure Mark would touch on this, have a secondary operation that we do after we take it out of the abrasive media to get that just high luster finish like you would when you're waxing a vehicle. And we go through a dry process with no liquid and a corncob media. And it essentially is just kind of waxing and polishing just to give it that high luster. But, there's a lot of general purpose deburring that you can do in these machines where the process would be minutes. And in that situation, you can put a lot more parts in there too, because maybe a little bit of crashing between the parts doesn't matter. So there's a really wide range of use for these machines. And so, the time is dictated by the end result you're looking for.
If you guys can see what Matthew just walked over to the W5 with the MF3V polishing cob. Okay, that's the dry process. It's real simple. Set it and forget it. Just and all you need is a base machine. You know, we put a solid drain plug in there and just let the parts go. And usually running the parts overnight in a polishing cob gets, you know, that higher luster. Okay. It'll take in, standard cob might be good enough, but when we go to the PRI show or SHOT Show or any trade show, I always have the guys running it through that MF3V polishing cob just to get that showroom finish. It'll take, you know, what you call, say you call a Mercedes Benz or BMW finish, take it up to the Bentley Rolls Royce. Okay. That really, that gleam. Is it necessary? No, but some people like the bling. It shiny sells, you know? And that's another thing. Like I said, at PRI, Jason's parts look gorgeous, you know?
Well, so far from what I've seen, it's pretty phenomenal. And again, I guess the other part is, as you've already alluded to, finding the right kind of person that can even attempt to do this kind of work is, you know, slim and none. So you got a machine right there, and you've already touched on the fact that how many people are you gonna get to stand there and work on something for 24 hours straight? It ain't gonna happen. I mean, it ain't gonna happen where you can afford to do it. So I mean, it's got huge cost savings, plus the fact that you get those extra hours.
Well, if I can interject, as far as especially polishing, okay, hand polishing, it's a dying art. The guys out there that are still doing hand polishing, doing a good job, have been dragged out of retirement, kicking and screaming, and they're being paid obnoxiously to do so, and they're still not happy. Okay, no one nowadays will sit there in front of a grinder and a polishing wheel. Okay, it's really tough. I mean, it's a miserable job. Okay, they get dust all over, breathing it, you know, wearing masks. So it's very attractive when I can show of, hey, I can get you this lustrous finish in a machine, you know, and then if the operator just loading and unloading, whether it be in a Vibe, a centrifugal barrel is another prime candidate for really putting a high luster on parts, you know, and we can help you out with that. And the one thing with Giant is when we always encourage people to come visit, come send us your sample parts prior to, so we can, you know, set up our lab beforehand so we know what we're getting ourselves into, because we want to show you optimum results when you come in. Let us play with your parts and figure out, dictate to you what's going to be the best method of finishing, because you could, you know, some people have a Vibe when they could be using a centrifugal barrel or vice versa, or maybe a blast cabinet. We do consider ourselves metals finishing experts, that we know what we're talking about. Send us your parts. Let us figure out the best finishing method. You know, we're just going to ask you, what are you trying to do? And we're going to help you achieve that. Because a lot of times people call me up and send, hey, I want a Vibe. Well, it's not applicable for a Vibe. You know, you're better off doing this in a blast cabinet. Maybe, you know, this really isn't a Vibe job. It's a washing job. You know, by the changing the media, the type of machine you use, the chemistries, water flow, there's so many variables that you can really, you know, it's like making it's like a recipe. We're going to create that recipe, and you're just going to modify it to the best of your liking. Okay. And see what works best. And, you know, the end result is, you know, a good part, but you have to have your sales team. You know, I tell guys all the time, production, hey, get with your sales staff, take a look. I know what you asked for, but why don't you look at this part here? See if you can sell it. Okay. Because I could produce you a great part, but if you're not going to sell it, well, it's not going to do you any good.
Okay. Well, real quick, Chuck Rearick would like to know, through all these processes to do it, does it affect the dimension? How much, you know, do you remove material wise? And, you know, and if so, is this part of your calculation when you're, I guess, initially saying the machine will be able to do this? And you and Jason both can probably address this.
It can. It depends on the process. There are processes that will not affect tolerances, and then there are processes that will affect the tolerances. For instance, in the chemically accelerated, a lot of times they mask certain areas, okay, so they don't get affected. But, you know, it depends on when we get this project. Is this already being made and we're improving, or is this something that they're designing? So sometimes we work with the engineering team, okay, and when they're writing out a spec, they allow for dimensional changes, you know, what those tolerances are. But that's more the reason to run sample parts, okay, to find out exactly how much tolerance, you know, because if you turn the machine up too high, well, hey, the first time I ran samples, it was at a lower RPM and I ran it in a vibe and no effective tolerances. But then say, hey, I tried this in a centrifugal barrel and turned it up a little bit and I distorted it, you know, or it's out, you know. Also flatness spec, okay. A lot of times, you know, we've damaged parts, and then there are other times, you know, that's not a consideration you need to take, is how deep is that channel? What is that media? What's the bulk density of the media? Does it weigh, you know, something like a plastic, which can be 55, 65 pounds a cubic foot, or is it a high density ceramic media at 120, 140 pounds a cubic foot, or steel media? Okay, as you saw in that ball burnisher, you know, anywhere from 270 to 400 pounds a cubic foot. Okay, when you get in a deep channel, there's a lot of compressive strength going on and getting down on that part, you know, and that could be a pro or a con. If you want to do some stress relief, steel media is another method, you know, that, you know, sometimes can eliminate shot peening, you know, or be used in place of, and you're almost like combining processes.
Okay, we've also got another follow-up question here from Joseph Warrer. Could an aluminum motorcycle side cover, say like a clutch cover, be polished this way?
Yes.
Absolutely.
You do that, Jason?
Yeah, you would just use different media. I've got some aluminum parts here behind me.
Okay.
You really use a non-abrasive media. We have a porcelain media, round ball shaped media that we use for aluminum. These aren't really polished per se. These were more done just for deburring. But if you ran these through the porcelain media and then just a short time in the polishing cob that Mark referenced, you would get an exceptionally high luster finish. Probably.
The way your lights were reflecting off of that last piece you held up, I thought you had it polished pretty darn good. It looked like Mr. Clean.
Yeah. Well, here's a piece that's actually been polished through the polishing media. So this gives you a comparison. You know, if the user or the person that asked the question can see both.
Just you know, I'll tell you what the response was already, guys. Wow, thanks. I mean, so you've got somebody right now on the hook, it sounds like, for one of these machines, because undoubtedly they're not able to get quite that kind of finish, you know. So I think that's exactly the direction we're trying to go in here as far as educating the potential of what you can do. And to me, I think that goes right back to somebody, if they weren't doing it in your machine, somebody's got to polish it by hand. And I don't think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Correct.
That's what we've found is just the diversity of what we can do in these machines. And we purchased them more for general purpose deburring initially, you know, in process machining, to just try to take away some of that tedious deburring that the operators would have to do with scrapers or that they couldn't do because they couldn't reach around blind corners and remove a burr that might have been a result of a milling process or something. And being able to showcase the parts with the high luster finish is really secondary to us and has opened avenues that we didn't have before. You know, now we have the the option when we build a transmission for someone to sell or upgrade to super finish of all internal components. So now that's something that we can do in-house. It allows us to actually charge a little bit more for the product that we're selling, but deliver a better product to the customer as well. So
okay, along the same lines, we got Aaron has asked, what is the lowest finish that vibrating finishing can achieve? Can it reach a 1 micron inch finish? And what medium would you use to perform something like that at best?
More than likely, it's going to be multiple media. It's going to be multiple step process.
Mm-hmm.
A vibratory can get it. Okay. However, centrifugal barrel, honestly, it's going to depend on the part.
Right.
Okay. beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I think everyone agrees. It's where your starting point is and where you need to end up. It's the better job you do machining or making your part, the less time you're going to spend in one of our machines finishing and less amount of steps. Sometimes, like regarding hand polishing, you can't always, replace taking some of the heavy lines or burrs off. You might have to hit it with a belt first to get it to a certain starting point of what is going to be realistic in a vibe. Otherwise, you're going to be spend weeks in a machine. Okay, it's not going to get there. Okay, my suggestion is send parts, and there's different processes. As I mentioned, that chemically accelerated process can get pretty low, and they use it a lot for internals for ring and pinions, crankshafts, transmissions are popular. It all depends on, like I said, where you start and where you need to end up. Send parts. Well,
I mean, a 1 micro-inch finish is just exceptional. What he's asking for too.
Yeah.
That's far beyond what you would ever even typically spec out on mechanical parts, at least in my world. But I can tell you that we do post grinding vibratory finishing on some parts, where we would grind for size and cylindricity, and then we would finish in the vibe for enhancement of that surface finish. And I know we can get down 5-6 micro-inch for sure. Just with a one step.
With that being said, guys, and Mark, more in particular directly at you, how many machines does Giant have in their inventory?
Now, not many. They're lead time. I mean, with what's going on today, supply chain sucks. Okay, but as far as I usually try to stock some of our more popular models like the W5 that you've seen, the GB3, the GBB4. We were running stock to 2 weeks on a lot of those machines. Right now, unfortunately, I'm between 4 and 6 is realistic. What I'm telling people, place your orders now. Let me get you in the queue. Okay. That's on those smaller machines. On the bigger stuff, okay, there are a lot of custom jobs. Guys, why don't you go over to the big GT39 or the FT140? I'm going to have them walk over through some of the bigger you don't sell these once a week or once a month, or if you're lucky on some of these bigger machines, it's once every few years on some of these. For instance, we got the GT39 that we have on the shop floor that's coming through is a 22-inch diameter by 180 inches long. Okay, so that's a big machine. Okay, now right behind it, you see they're making one of our inlines, which is another one of our bread and butters. Okay, this is for high volume with short time cycles, something say 15 minutes or less. Okay, you put a part on one end and it goes the other end, and everyone thinks it's running. There's a corkscrew. There's nothing. It's just the natural tumbling action of the machine. Okay, and the flow. Okay, this would be in automotive. Okay, where we're talking hundreds of thousands of parts or something that, like I said, short time cycles with high volume. Okay, and it's like an assembly line for finishing. Okay, something that doesn't, die castings are popular, stampings are popular for these type of machines. Okay, go ahead and go over to that 140, guys, in the welding area. They're gonna show you how big, people were asking how big we make equipment. Well, they're big enough where I could fit through it. Okay, these things, this next one they're gonna show you is the beginning stages. I got a 34-inch diameter tube by, I think this one's 20 feet long. I don't know, I think it's frozen. You there? I see Jeff.
Oh, you're talking to me? I thought I was talking to the other guy. Sorry.
All right, are you guys by the welding area yet? Oh, you lost one. Okay, I'm sorry. Guys, they lost Wi-Fi signal on the iPad.
That's okay.
Technical.
I've got a question for you here because we've been
Go
talking.
right ahead. Yeah.
Jeffrey Bell wants to know, I've heard a lot about how parts look. Can you speak to the function of a super finished surface?
Can we speak? Yeah, smoother is faster and less friction is going to get you longevity. It's going to be easier for power. You know, a lot of the things that we do, and Jeffrey knows that by putting a better finish on your part is going to increase the life and the performance. Matter of fact, we work together all the time.
This is actually something I wanted to speak to. With my engineering background, I'm always looking into the why is something better. And the vibratory finishing process actually creates an isotropic surface finish, right? Which means it's non-directional. And in many situations, that's, I think, critical. You know, we know that on a crankshaft, we have to be concerned about, you know, what direction we're grinding it with respect to rotation. Well, if you take that same crankshaft and put an isotropic finish on the journal, you know, it doesn't care because it's a non-directional finish. And so I had mentioned earlier that there are times we put parts through the vibratory after we've ground them for, you know, within spec on size, surface finish, cylindricity, whatever. But you know, in the case of a transmission planetary system where you've got needle bearings riding on pinion shafts, we want to make sure that nothing skews the motion of those needle bearings as they roll around the pinion shaft. And a directional finish could certainly do that. So putting a non-directional isotropic finish on that part certainly enhances it. It's going to make that needle bearing run better. It's going to make the needle bearing stay straighter through its path of travel. So, you know, it's not all about the bling. The bling is cool. That's what we can show off at the trade shows. But you know, there's some sound engineering background behind what we're doing.
And these finishes that you guys are talking about, does it also help with heat? Does any of this right here have any kind of bearing on heat, the way stuff as far as polished and everything, you know, that instead of an absorption, more of a reflection type deal? Does that come into play?
Absolutely. By smoother surface, less friction, less heat. You know, if your engine's running cooler, it's better for you.
Yeah, I agree exactly with what Mark said. You know, again, I'm speaking to gear trains because that's what I specialize in. But you know, if two gears come into mesh and their surfaces aren't smooth, you know, and the high spots and the low spots are colliding with one another, then you know that energy of that collision has to go somewhere. It's going to go into heat, and it's also going to force those two parts to have to essentially wear themselves in together. If you put those same two parts through the vibratory finishing, where the peaks can be somewhat pushed over into the valleys, then you know the break-in process is going to be reduced. There's going to be less metal contamination during the break-in process, and less heat generated overall.
Well, I think Rich has got another question. Is there an advantage of doing metal finish versus metal treatment, or do you still want to do both, and why?
That's gonna depend on the part. To be honest with you, there's a lot of you get mixed results. I mean, personally, I don't do it. I could just help make it better. We've got people that attest that they do one is good enough. Some people do the other or both because it's written in the spec, or it just gives them that warm, fuzzy feeling.
Right.
Once again, try it. Okay, let's see where we are. I mean, run tests. That's the whole purpose of sending sample parts in for processing. And sometimes the processes are very easy to figure out. It's a very short, hey, you walk off home run. Other times, hey, you know, well, we did this, but we screwed this up. Okay, well, that's why we go back and forth a couple of times. That it might take a couple tries to get it right. You know, prime example is when we prep parts, you know, to get anodized or I'll supply them a beautiful part, and then I'll tell them, send it to your anodizer and see how the part comes back now. That's the test. So this way they have a firsthand knowledge to see exactly what their part's going to look like prior to them issuing us a purchase order or buying anything.
Yeah, I don't think that that the vibratory finishing or Mark's equipment is a solution for absolutely everything. There are still going to be situations when you're going to have to anodize a part. You might have to put plating on a part. You still have to heat treat parts. It's just another piece of the puzzle, really.
So Jason, what makes your parts now by working with Giant better than your competitors?
Well, I touched on this at the beginning of the webinar. I think that, when I'm supplying parts, whether it be parts directly to an end user or parts to my own assembly staff, there's a high expectation of fit and finish. You don't want to be dealing with sharp edges. You don't want to have parts that won't fit together because there's a burr or sharp edge on the leading edge of two mating parts. So that's why I say that, the real reason that we came to Mark and Giant was for general deburring, okay? Because that is huge in fit and finish. And so we kind of have the joke around here, we wage a war on burrs with Mark's equipment. So I think that first, but, I feel like our product is engineered very well. And again, that by bringing Mark's equipment on board, it was just another piece of the puzzle and making sure that we deliver top quality components to our customers.
Well, both of you guys, kind of early part of the show, I think that maybe some of our listeners also would like to understand more about your companies too, especially Mark. How long has Giant been in business now?
This is our 32nd year in business. The history of Giant Finishing is family business, and my father started the company, who is the epitome of the original American dream. He immigrated to this country from Poland with his parents, his brother and his sister, went to school, learned the language, and worked 3 jobs all of his life. Okay. He then graduated from the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, with a degree in mechanical engineering, and then went out into the world. Got a job working for some eyeglass company, and they picked up and decided to move everything to Kansas, and he didn't want to go out there, okay, watch corn grow. So he went elsewhere. He ended up getting a job at one of our competitors, and he was there for a while and worked all the way up to vice president of engineering. And from there, he didn't like the way that, things were going. So he went off on his own. He decided to sell equipment, be a rep, and he still worked with them. He had good a relationship with them. But it wasn't until working with their methods, they made great equipment, but they're content. And he was trying to get a quote for a simple machine to one of his good customers. He lost an order because it took 30 days to get a quote. So he got pissed. He said, screw it, I'm going to build it myself. And that's when he went out and started Giant Finishing. And then as far as me, I've been doing this all my life. Okay. There's no school for vibratory finishing. There's a lot of trial and error, and I've failed many a times to just learn from your mistakes and see what goes on out there. But I'm trying to take Giant to a whole nother level. Okay. My father is still involved in the company. Okay. Very much so. Okay. We use them for special customers that I still allow him to talk to. Okay. It's a different method of doing business in 30 some years. Let's be honest, guy. I have the luxury at this time of not having to go and bang on doors and look for, hey, it's a stamping company. People don't realize. I mean, the days of the past is, knocking on the door. You have to walk into a place that's oblivious. They've been doing the same thing for 30 years, 50 years, however many years, they're oblivious to a problem that you need them, or that they need you. But you tell them you have a solution to a problem that they don't have, or they were oblivious that they had, and that solution to the problem is going to cost them anywhere between $5,000, say $50,000. What are your chances of getting that sale? Versus nowadays, people realize they have a problem. They go online, they Google it, they'll find us, and once they find us, they contact us, they realize we probably have a solution to their problem. Well, that's most of it, you know? And like Jason, Jason and I have been talking prior to him buying his first machine for several years. I think it was 5 years or something like that. After 5 years at PRI, time after time, not yet. He finally pulled the trigger before PRI, started with like 3 machines. Then after PRI, he bought 2 more, you know? So obviously we did something right and helped him out, you know? And that's, you know, we've been for several years now, we've had a great relationship.
All right, while we're talking about Giant, you know, I got Chuck once again asking, where is Giant located at? Now I know you want to tell how everybody out there right now how to get hold of you and get questions answered and buy machines.
Yeah, Giant is located in Addison, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, just about 20 minutes southwest of O'Hare Airport. Okay, so we're not in the city of Chicago, so nobody gets scared. A lot of times I'll tell people, hey, if you know, we'll get people from all over the country, actually all over the world. Okay, they'll find, I said, hey, you just get to Chicago. I said, I'll pick you up at the airport. We'll show you where we'll run sample parts in the lab. I'll take you for a Lou Malnati's deep dish pizza and send you on your way. You know, might be able to get in and out in one day. It might be a couple of days if it's a longer process. Okay.
So Jason, tell us a little bit about Cohen Engineering. You said, I mean, this is what I love about your guys' company. You've got your dads involved. I mean, you come from a family background, and I think that's real important in today's world. So what's Cohen got going on? And real quick, before I forget, got another question from Rich, and he wants to know, how long have you been applying? How long have you applied finishing on your parts, and do you do it in-house?
Yes, we have Mark's equipment, obviously in-house. As he mentioned, we've got 5 of his machines. So all the processes that we've shown you, we do right here. We actually have had vibratory finishing in-house for a long time. We had a much smaller machine that's comparable to Mark's wedge. But we really never understood the process, the selection of media, the selection of the right burnishing compound until we met Mark and the guys at Giant. And I think that was, you know, kind of the marriage, if you will, that lended us to going with their equipment and buying so many machines is just the education that they taught us about how to better use the process. So I hope that answers his question. But to tell you a little bit about Cohen Engineering, our history is much similar to Mark's. We've been at it a little bit longer. My father started the company 45 years ago now, 1976. He was a hot rod enthusiast, had been a drag racer, grew up on the farm and knew that's not what he wanted to do. Although I take a little offense to Mark's comment that he didn't want to watch corn grow, because we got corn planted all the way around our shop. So we're in a little bit more rural area than Mark. We're in Kokomo, Indiana. We've been here all along. Grew up here, met my wife here, we raised our kids here. I attended Purdue University, have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. So much like Mark said, I've done this my whole life. I grew up in the business, knew I wanted to race with Dad, and you know, it's really a blessing to be able to enjoy your job. Sometimes, you know, have your job as an extension of your hobby. Dad and I still continue to race. We have a competition eliminator car. We run an NHRA. Don't have the time to race like we used to, but we've been, you know, reasonably successful with that over the years. So it's neat to, you know, be able to test our product, mingle with our customers in that manner. But we've grown a lot over the years. We're in our 3rd location here in Kokomo. We're 45,000 square feet now in our manufacturing facility. We typically employ in the low 40s number of people. And kind of it.
Hey, I want to make a comment on it. My father said he didn't want to watch the corn grow. I travel.
Okay.
I like it better out there. Okay, that's why I tested. When people come to Chicago, I avoid this shit. I like it better out there.
I just giving you a hard time.
Benefits.
No. Well, guys, it's always interesting. And I guess the thing is right now, Jason, I'm not supposed to be a salesman, but I just thought at least ask you, got 5 machines. So what's the next one you're going to buy from Giant? I mean, is there another one on the horizon? Because like Mark said, you get in the queue. I mean, I know you're like family, but at the same time, you got to get in line to get one. So what are you looking at? What would be the next thing that would be a plus for your company?
Well, in terms of the Giant equipment, the thing that we have looked at most recently and talked with Mark about is the slurry blasting. And again, it's just something I haven't pulled the trigger on yet. And we, he mentioned that there's different finishing processes and that the vibratory one's not always the right one. That's why they got into blasting. So, I've got blasting equipment in-house as well. Just it's all currently dry blasting. I'm kind of intrigued by the slurry blasting and wondered on some of the transmission cases where we utilize an OEM case and have to, prep it, clean it if the slurry blasting might not be a good option for us. So that's definitely something that I'm considering. If I was going to add any more, I wish I could have one of Mark's tumblers at every machine, just so the parts could come right out of the machine and immediately be tumbled. But
buy a bigger
probably not. I was going to say I'm out of room. We're neat freaks around here, so we have all the media blasting and the tumbling and everything in its own room that has its own air evacuation system and all that, and the room is completely filled right now. So, but it is important. I don't know if the users could tell that and watching Mark's walkthrough. It's important to note that you're going to have a water source for these machines. If you're going to run the burnishing compound, you probably want to get one of these mixing systems. So it's got to be hooked up to water. You're going to have water discharge that you have to deal with. If you run them very often, it's close to have the thing or convenient to have it somewhat close to a drain, have one of his settling tanks.
And let me touch on that. Not everybody has the luxury of having water line and a drain available, which is ideal. So some people are forced to recycle. Okay. I don't know if you guys can go up on the settling tanks. We've got settling tanks that can help you recycle. Like that Wedge series machine that I told you, our bread and butter, is only a 10-gallon tank. Well, there are options for going to an ST55 settling tank, which is basically another skid space. Okay, and that could be used for tubs, for bowls, whatever. But then if for a bowl, if floor space is an issue, we've got our wraparound settling tank, which hugs the base of the unit. Can we show the wraparound settling tank on the GP4, guys? There we go. He's walking over there right now. Okay, this, it's a little bit smaller, but in this, we did it at a trade show. Okay, I needed something for the trade show to recycle the water. Okay, ideally, you'd settle out the solids and then go to drain. But as I mentioned, not everybody has that luxury. And as far as regarding recycling, think of it as taking a bath. Do you want to be the 5th person in line for a bath with the same water, okay, as everybody else? Same thing with your parts. Those parts done on Friday aren't going to be as pristine clean as the ones that were done on Monday. You're redepositing a lot of that stuff back on there. So ideally, you'd have that premixing compound system that Jason mentioned, the settling tank to, get your solids prior to going to drain, but not everybody has that luxury, so they're forced to recycle, and then it just becomes a maintenance type issue. Okay, that's really the main maintenance for these machines.
Well, guys, we got about 3 minutes left here in our hour session, and thank you for spending the time with us and sharing your ideas as far as what your beliefs are and making better products, your expertise with Giant, Mark. And Jason, obviously, you and I discussed yesterday, you guys got a great thing going. And as you guys have made this partnership, you've improved your product. And I think, you know, at the same time, you both are learning from one another of what could be the next, you know, breakthrough as far as, you know, how do we finish a part? I love the fact that, you know, that Mark's willing to, you know, throw caution to the wind and try something, you know, and to make it better. And Jason, with your engineering background, I think, again, you know, that's lends credibility to what parts you're able to make better for your customers and your overall product line. I mean, I think that's exactly what EPARTRADE's all about, is trying to show the rest of the world how you do it here in the United States, whether you're in a cornfield or whether you're just outside the Chicago city limits. So the idea of working together and creating a team is exactly what EPARTRADE's all about, making the overall racing industry one big team and one big happy family.
Well, I sure appreciate the opportunity to join you guys today.
It's been a pleasure.
Registering on EPARTRADE is easy. Fill out your name, email, phone number, and create a secure password. Next, select your business type. Choose supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose racing business if you're looking to find new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose race team if you own or are a member of a professional racing team. Begin typing your company name. We most likely already have your company in our database, which you can select from the drop-down. Then, enter your job title. Choose Claim Company if you'll be editing your company profile. Other members of your company can choose Join Company if they'd like to use EPARTRADE as well. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Click Register Now, and your registration will be submitted for approval. You'll need to confirm your email once it goes through. To keep our platform industry only, you'll be approved shortly after. If we require additional proof of business, we'll reach out. Welcome to EPARTRADE.